Watch this. Watch what happens when I try to drink my coffee. It's like I'm freaking out to my music. Today was full of things. A lot of things. Many things. Things are all around us. I love things. You might be looking at things right now. You might be doing things or affecting things with other things. You might be placing things on top of other things. That's a popular one. But what things happened today? Let's see. Did another podcast. I do a writing podcast with a friend, and we talked about the differences between the Slayers anime and the novelizations. That was one. One of the many things. Drank my coffee, that's another thing. Yes, the ninja did fly a little. The ninja always flies. I got my Legion Go to run Bazite, which is better than Windows. I don't even want to... I do want to get into Windows, but I'm refraining. I'm refraining from doing so. I actually know someone who is like the most amazing person with computers in the entire state of Michigan, and I want to talk to him about that, but that'll have to wait. Gotta get in touch with him again. It's a friend I haven't actually seen in years, despite the fact that he's probably the closest available friend around that I haven't seen in a long time. You ever do that? You ever have a friend who's like, it's like a 40-minute drive, I could easily go and make a trip out of this. And so like I've got two friends from my youth that still live close, and they're the only ones I really see. But 40 minutes is nothing for someone who used to drive an hour to work every day for like 20 years. Also, I don't know why that piece of hair is just like trying to get me to eat it. I must have messed with the physics or something. Or, oh no, my camera's in the wrong position. That's what it is. Well, no big deal. A lot of times if I don't have it set right, if I turn too far to the side, it makes me frown, so I can't even see if it's doing it, but maybe it's not now since I moved it. Yeah, you can kind of see where it goes from a smile to a frown. Breaking lore. I'm breaking lore. Not that I've given any yet. Yeah, so I had a Lenovo Legion Go that I talked about recently, and I bought it because it had Windows on it, and I was like, oh, I can run Steam on here, and I can run good old games, and maybe throw DOSBox on there, get a little bit of that in the mix. I saw what they were doing with Windows Recall, and I'm now trying to migrate all of my machines over to Linux. Yes, I'm doing that. I've used Linux plenty before. I'm not an expert with it, but I've had machines that ran it, and it's fine. It's really better than Windows at this point, but I mean, it's a low bar. Yeah, I was fortunate enough to. Oh geez, I'm getting my indie VTubers mixed up here. I watch a VTuber called Mako Fukasame. And I happened to pop in on her stream, and she was talking about the whole Windows Recall thing, and I was already angry from having heard about it, so I basically sat there and watched the whole spiel on it, and just like, it was even worse than I thought. And I generally lean towards the worst when it's Microsoft. Yeah, but yeah, so Bazite was I guess a fork of SteamOS, which is what runs on the Steam Deck. Now the Legion Go was a Windows-based portable PC gaming thing, and I put Bazite on it, so now it runs like a Steam Deck, and it functions pretty well so far. I've had a little bit of trouble getting controllers to connect to it. I kind of wanted to get some Bluetooth controllers running on it so I could do fighting games with my brother. Breaking lore, breaking lore. I don't know, I didn't actually say anything about siblings in the lore. We'll just pretend that that's going to be part of it. I'm writing a book. I'm finishing writing one book, and then I might write the lore book for this fun nonsense. Yeah, I did a recording today. Messed around with the Legion Go. I rewatched the movie The Shadow. I don't know if I've mentioned it before on here, but me and my brother have always loved The Shadow. So, yeah, we did that. Well, I did that. It's been a couple years since I've seen it. That movie has aged so well, despite the fact that the lead actor is probably going on trial soon for shooting someone. But he did a great job in that movie. He shot a lot of people in that movie too, although that wasn't real. And honestly, I think he was cast really well in the role. It was Alec Baldwin playing Lamont Cranston. Yeah, it's a good movie. It's got a star-studded cast. It's probably my favorite superhero movie. Like, it has aged so incredibly well, and I remember watching something somewhere where someone had laid out how a lot of what happened in that movie was borrowed for the three-part, who was it? Christopher Nolan? Batman? Yeah, I mean, even the nuclear bomb in it looked the same. And it's funny to think of The Shadow having a nuclear bomb in it. If you've never listened to the radio shows, they are all free and they are all on the internet. You should do so. You should see what was kept from us in even in the 80s when we had a lot of action and violence on children's shows. Nothing was quite like The Shadow, and children were listening to that show back then. I remember listening to one. Hello there, Pedro Kamen. You are the 20th incarnation of Pedro Kamen, I see. I'm not talking about anything specific, just the Shadow movie and a bunch of nonsense I did today. Yeah, it's a star-studded cast, great movie. The old Shadow radio show was also star-studded, or at least star-making. It had a young Orson Welles. And I forget who the other actors were because I don't think their names were ever as popular outside of the show. Today there will be reaction. Well, there's very little to react to here. I'm a very boring person. I'm just talking about things I love. But yeah, it's worth listening to The Shadow. There's an episode where two guys are setting fires as part of an insurance scheme throughout the city, and they discover who he is. They discover his real identity. And the Shadow's not like other superheroes. He can't be tolerating that. Can you send a link? I suppose you can send a link. I don't know what I'll do with it, but yeah. Let's see. So cool, so cool. So yeah, there's a moment in this episode of The Shadow where these guys, he gets them to set themselves on fire and does away with them, so there's no one left that knows his secret identity. The man's a jerk, but you gotta love him. So yeah, that was one of the many things that were thing participatory. And I think that was kind of what capped off the night, was rewatching the 1994 Shadow movie. It had a lot of elements that were great. They used a lot of special effects in fun ways. It's one of those movies that gave you a lot by giving you a little. In a world where everyone can sit in front of a green screen these days and have anything happen that they like, they did a few of the shadow morphing in and out of visibility with several different effects. Like they showed one where it looks like he steps out of his own shadow from a wall, and he's in like a water reservoir at one point, and they have him distort in like a wavy manner back into existence as part of the special effects, as opposed to today where it would, I mean, you could rapid fire the shadow going in and out of visibility in modern movies just through use of a green screen, or the old school camera tricks of stopping and going. But it loses something, I think. Yes, asterisks. I need those sometimes. I lost my voice doing a radio show earlier today. Lay it on me. Let's see if this is something I can read out loud. My ears move every time I blink. Works well for someone with Tourette's. I blink a lot. I wonder what happens if I do a long blink. I guess I can't see that. Yeah, so let's backtrack. So I ended the night with a bit of the shadow. I was hanging out with my brother a bit. He's doing some artwork and trying to get an old TV to work. Simultaneously, he found an old CRT TV, but we couldn't get it to select video mode because it's one of those ones where you had to have the remote to do that, and it did not come with a remote. And yes, the title is apt. In this, I am literally just talking about anything that comes to mind. This is all stream of consciousness. I thought about finishing the duck game, but I just wasn't up to the task yet. Maybe I'll talk myself into it. So I was trying to run Melty Blood on my Legion Go. It was really weird. I got the Bluetooth controllers to work if I was just using one. And if I didn't open the settings menu at all after that, the game was playable. But then if I tried to add a second player controller, it would do this weird thing where it was like I was rapid fire pressing any button I touched. So I couldn't even select a character because it would just, the square would shoot all over the place. And it was a little annoying. I don't know if there was an update for it or if I'm using the wrong thing to connect. But I think I'm kind of stuck using the USB dock with USB wires to really get any gaming going on that thing. But it's a great little system, and I definitely recommend anyone that picks up a Legion Go put Bazite on it. At the very least, do a drive partition to get Windows off of there, because even though I think it's the better machine compared to the Steam Deck, SteamOS, the software, is much better for pick up and play portable gaming. So you definitely want to check that out a bit. And I'll have to talk about whether or not the functionality stays the same when you install Bazite or not. I'm not sure if it will. Like, I haven't even tried the right controller mouse bit yet. But I guess we'll see. Alright, backtracking further. We were talking about reading the Slayers novel. It's a bit... I guess it doesn't matter if I talk about that here. Already talked about it with a friend, and he's kind of the head of operations of the podcast. So I'm basically just there to record with him and help him come up with ideas for what to talk about. But he does all the work, and he's worlds better at it than I am. We used to do a YouTube channel where we would review movies and things, and I tried taking the reins on that, and that is the exact reason why it was like maybe once a month we would do something. Because I am not good at keeping things regular. I have 50 different projects going at any time, and I don't keep track of which one I'm supposed to be working on. Like, right now, we decided that we were going to try and talk about separating authors from their politics, and we were going to each pick a couple authors to talk about. I believe he's planning on doing Orson Welles and... not Orson Welles, I'm sorry, H.G. Wells. I'm still thinking of The Shadow. H.G. Wells. Oh, geez, I can't remember. What the heck was the Narnia guy? C.S. Lewis. Boy, there were two more he was going to tackle. And anyway, I was going to try and do Terry Brooks, because I know nothing about Terry Brooks. And I might try to tackle Michael Crichton. I don't remember exactly... Well, I never knew exactly what Michael Crichton's politics were, but I have an inkling I know what they were. I'm just thrown off slightly by one book that he wrote, which was called Travelers. And if you read that book, and you read his other books, and you try to figure out where he lies on the ideology and political spectrum, it's almost impossible, just because of the weird stuff that happened in Travelers. It's written from a non-fiction point of view perspective, almost like a biography, but I don't think it's meant to be a real biography, because it doesn't sound like anything that Michael Crichton is really related to. But I don't know. Maybe it was, and that's just... He's simultaneously very much like the things in that book, but also loves science. It's hard to believe that someone that came up with the Gell-Mann amnesia concept is into spoon bending, I guess. We'll say. And for those who don't know what Gell-Mann amnesia is, you're about to find out. Gell-Mann amnesia is described by Michael Crichton and whoever the other guy was that came up with it with him. Someone that I'm sure is equally as popular as Michael Crichton, but they came up with this together. It was described as the scientific term for what happens when you're sitting and reading a newspaper, and you're reading an article about a subject that you are very, very knowledgeable about, and as you're reading it, you realize, this is a bunch of crap. Most of what's being written here is wrong, and doesn't make any sense, and isn't scientifically sound. And you know that because you're an expert, or you've had a lot of experience in it. So you're reading this article, and you're good. You're like, yep, this is a bunch of nonsense. And then you turn the page, and you read an article about something you know nothing about, and believe every single word it says. That's Gell-Mann amnesia. When your lack of knowledge about one thing still doesn't... When you don't lose any suspicion that perhaps the next thing you read also contains a lot of errors, just because you don't know as much about it. It's probably the best description of the lack of skepticism that people have for a lot of things. Like, I mean, we had like a lot of things throughout the last 100 years that we still don't have 100% answers for. Like, I remember Lewis Black 20 years ago making a joke about it, saying, is milk good for you? And the audience kind of, nobody really reacted really strongly and goes, see, you don't know. I used to love his comedy. I missed seeing him play at the casino near here. He was going to do a comedy show, and I missed it. It was a couple years ago. Got to keep your eyes out for those things. I don't go to many shows or anything, but I would have gone to see Lewis Black. So yeah, lost my voice mostly, talking about the Slayers. The book follows so closely to the show it's ridiculous, and it is one of the rare cases where the show is probably better than the book. Not by much. It's just that it's so close to the book that they added extra stuff and a little more tension and a little more world building in some places that made it better, but the books are worth a read. Especially if it's a much older book than modern light novels, so it has a lot of it's different. It's not an isekai for a start, which is virtually every light novel that makes it to the West. It's not exactly high fantasy either. I mean, if you're looking for Lord of the Rings, this isn't the place to go. But yeah, I found recently that there were hardcover editions that I was never aware of that contain 3 books each, and I'm slowly picking up all of those. See how far down the Slayer's rabbit hole I can go after almost 30 years. Oh geez, how long has Slayer's been around? It's from the 90s, I'm pretty sure. At the very least, it was like very early 2000. But no, it was 90s, because I was in high school. Yeah, this was 90s. Yeah, I bought the soundtrack for Slayer's Next, or the Sound Bible, I believe it was called, back when I was in high school, at a little anime shop that was selling bootlegs of CDs, the old SM bootlegs that everyone thought were the real ones because they were such exact replicas. The only difference was they were printed, or copied, I should say, in Korea, which made them much cheaper than having to pay the VAT tax for CDs in Japan. So instead of spending $40 on it, I was able to get it for $26 in a local shop. Good times. I had to get anime in a lot of weird ways back then. I remember watching most of Dragon Ball Z on VHS. We actually had a running gag in our group of friends, was that I think I had the Cell tapes. I had all of the Cell Saga on VHS, or at least the Perfect Cell Saga. And it was like 5 cassettes, and I gave them to someone for their birthday so they could watch all of them. And they slowly circled around our friend group until did they ever come back to me? I'm not sure if they ever got back to me, but I think they made it to my brother. Like, people kept passing them around on birthdays. It was funny. It was all good times. You know, I'm wondering what was meant here by can I send a link? Wait a minute. Is this someone on Discord and I just didn't realize it? No. No, I do not see anything on Discord. I thought you meant to the chat. I don't know what was going on, but yeah. Oh, time for another sip of coffee and for my model to wig out a bit. That's the good stuff. Can it be? Am I already out of things to talk about? Literally looking at stuff on my desk now. Oh, a couple weeks ago I went to Combo Breaker. I used to play a lot of fighting games with friends, and I got a lot of them that still love those things and still like to do the tournaments. And my brother talked me into going to Combo Breaker, and for months I was like, do I really want to do this? Because I used to go to Anime Central every year for like, 12 some years straight. Like, I was there back when there were 5,000 people there. And there's something like, I don't even know, 30,000 when you go now? Maybe 40,000? I don't know. There's a ton of people there. It was really fun in the early days. I really, really, really wish everyone could experience a small-scale anime convention at least once, because you have no idea how much more fun you can have with your friends. they get bigger and people tend to separate more, and they find their own things and get lost in them. Not everyone wants to do the same thing. And then when you are together, you're pushing through crowds. Lots of waiting to get things done. It does make it easier to do things by yourself when the crowd gets too big, because then you can get through the crowd by yourself. You can pick out the things you want to do. A lot of hustle and bustle. But when there's only a couple thousand people there, and you can hang out with your friends the entire time, and there's only a few things, so chances are anything that someone wants to do isn't going to be crossed over by something someone else wants to do. Or at the very least, the group doesn't get split up entirely. It's really fun, and you've usually got more opportunities to meet any guests that are there or anything, so it's worth doing, definitely. But yeah, Combo Breaker was fun. I drove there. I was a little miffed the entire time building up to it. I had a book that I'd gotten a few copies published of, or rather, I published a book and I had a bunch of print copies that I picked up, and I was going to distribute them freely at Combo Breaker to random people. I almost said randos. That's what I meant, though. I meant the randos, handing them to randos. And it turned out that we packed everything up. I forgot to bring them. We went to a 7-Eleven that was down the road to pick up snacks on the way. In the 7-Eleven, I said, oh shoot, I forgot to get the books. When I leave here, I'll go get them. By the time I paid for my stuff and got in the car and started driving and got to the highway, that is how far I got before I remembered that I was going to go back for those books. And by then we'd already been driving for half an hour and I wasn't about to, so it was a little annoying. But that's okay. I've still got the copies to hand out in other places. Yeah, so we went there. The drive there was fun. Listened to a lot of Japanese music. I was surprised. I've got one friend who is like into a lot of the Japanese music and stuff, but not so much of an anime fan as I am. We actually got him watching with, I believe it was Umi Neko. Was it Umi Neko? No, that was it. It was Umi Neko, but we also, he got into the visual novel, and he loved it. And so he started playing a lot of visual novels. And he's actually played probably, if not as many, probably more than me at this point, because he got into some that I wasn't even aware of. Loopers, I hadn't heard of that. He was the one that told me about it. What's the witch one? There's, not Umi Neko, but there's one with witch in the title. Yeah, so I've got a lot of old ones on the Saturn and the Super Nintendo that might match us blow for blow, but he may have actually played more of them than me, and I'm pretty much Weeb Force 1 half the time. So it's like all I talk about is anime sometimes. Even the podcast I do with my friend, who it's not difficult for this to happen because we both like anime, but it's supposed to be a writing podcast, and we turn the subject to anime so much it's ridiculous. I mean, we are talking about the writing of anime, but it happens. So anyway, we get to Combo Breaker, meet a bunch of people that are on my brother's Discord server. All cool folks to hang out with. Bunch of people there that had tables at Artist's Alley. Saw a friend I hadn't seen in years who was up there helping one of his friends who, by complete coincidence, was also on my brother's server. And she was up there selling some stuff. Really, really cool stuff. I gotta pick up one of those Chun-Li posters she had. I didn't compete in anything there. I wasn't really there for that. I haven't played fighting games seriously in 10 years at least, possibly more. And the only ones I was ever good at were Street Fighter Alpha 2 and a couple of the KOFs. Maybe a bit of Tatsunoko, but I tried playing that again recently and I'm nowhere near as good as I used to be, and I was never the best one in our group. It's nothing that I really felt the need to do. I kind of sat down and watched a bit of the Samurai Showdown tournament, and For some reason, the Smash Brothers tournament had a larger presence. Not necessarily... Well, it did have a larger audience. I don't understand that one. I'm never going to understand the joy of playing a party game that's supposed to feel like you don't know who's going to win moment from moment. And then for tournaments, they turn off all the items and everything that makes it a moment-to-moment game and says, haha, this is showing some skills. Yeah, sure. For a way that nobody else is ever going to play the game ever, I guess. But I guess for tournaments, that's how they do it, so... I really think that, like I know why they do it. They do it to say, okay, well now it's about skill. We've turned off the items. We know who in general the best characters are when there's no items on. So we can turn it into a game of skill this way and make it tournament worthy. But I really think it wouldn't make a bad tournament to have it be something that you don't really know based on any amount of skill necessarily who's going to come out on top. Like, maybe do a second tournament. Leave those items on. Get 4 people playing at the same time. Make it that kind of tournament. And I know this can be done because that same day there was a Power Stone 2 tournament. And there's no way you can set up that game to really make it about skill when you've got 4 players running around trying to steal those Power Stones. I think maybe you can turn the items off in that game, but they didn't. I don't think they had the items off, and that game just wouldn't be Power Stone. Like, even more so than Smash Brothers. For my money, Power Stone 2 and Power Stone were much better party games than Smash Brothers. And Smash Brothers might be the next best thing, but I think if Capcom had kept going with Power Stone as a series, probably would have been a good battle of the giants between those two for who had the most popular party game. But, as we know, Capcom does not like good things. Hey, there's more things. See? Matching the title. So, let's see. What else happened at Combo Breaker? I really should have done this right after the event. I bought a lot of stickers. Someone was selling a Bout sticker from KOF, and his thighs were ridiculous, so I kept calling him Thick Bow. One of my brother's Discord mates, he was there selling Sun stickers and a Marvel 2 poster. That was pretty cool. I'm a sucker for anything with the Monkey King, and Sun counts in that area. It's completely by accident that I got into the Monkey King. I had bought an old Chinese opera mask back in high school, and we used it to do a video for a high school project about someone stealing all the guitar picks. And from the mask that I wore in that, we ended up with the legendary Feudal Spains, who invaded more anime centrals than I care to count. Yeah, I had a couple of friends who created a bunch of extra characters for this fake lore for someone that... We were at Anime Central one year telling everyone that our costumes were from an unknown anime that never made it to the States called Legend of the Water Dragon. And it was pretty easy to convince people because back then not everything was known over here and it wasn't easy to get things, so people just assumed we weren't making it up. You know, this was when Wikipedia was still in its youth, so you couldn't find everything on Wikipedia and just disprove something. In fact, for a time there, I think one of our friends had a Legend of the Water Dragon wiki up. I think. I'm sure it's gone by now. And we had some Korean barbecue. That was fun. What else happened at Combo Breaker? I got to play the Godzilla pinball game. That was really cool, but not as cool as, once again, the subject keeps coming up. There was a pinball game for the Shadow. It was based on the movie, so it had all the movie images on it. And it had this neat little mini game I'd never really seen one like this before. I'm sure someone else must have had something similar. I mean, the same company probably made a lot of the really cool pinball games. The Godzilla one had this building mini game where you would knock a building down. But the Shadow one, it had one where there was like this, like a breakout section in the upper left corner, and the paddle buttons, when you entered that mode, they would become the controllers for the bar at the bottom. And so you were supposed to keep the ball in that area as long as possible by basically playing Breakout, but on a physical machine. And it was probably one of the best mini games I've ever played. Like it gave Medieval Madness, my favorite pinball game, a run for its money, just with how cool the bonus games were in it. But I think overall, Medieval Madness is still king. They actually didn't have a Medieval Madness machine lined up in their pinball games. They had they had the Addams Family, I think, Toxic Avengers, some Taxi One, Star Wars. They had a Venom pinball machine. And then they had the arcade circuit of fighting games, the sit-down mini cabinets. They had Tatsunoko and Marvel. I think they had Marvel 2 somewhere. This big old ring of them, though, I couldn't believe this when I saw it. They had something like, let's see, 5, 10, 15, 20, no. Maybe 16 or 18 cabinets in a circle. And they were all connected to like 2 really low wattage fused multi-tap breakers or multi-tap adapters. And you know, normally when you set up that many machines, you want a really, really good surge protector. And the surge protectors they were using, they were just like the cheap $10, $20 ones that, you know, if you're plugging like a couple of lightweight things into, you're probably safe. You're really supposed to get those industrial steel bar setups, or aluminum cast bars that have the, what is it, the very good fuse setup inside. I'm forgetting the words. Anyway, they didn't have that, so at some point there was a mini explosion and all the cabinets just shut down, and there was a bit of smoke and fire. The smell was obviously plastic melting, and that was the plug itself and a bit of the tape that was on the plug, holding it to the floor, not like some kind of weirdly rigged up thing. But yeah, that's not the kind of surge protector you use for multiple arcade cabinets. For future reference there, Combo Breaker. That was another thing. I had brought the Legion Go to play some fighting games, but I didn't set up the Bluetooth controllers before I got there, and it ended up being such a hassle that we didn't use it the whole time. Fortunately, my brother brought his Dreamcast, and we all ended up playing a bit of Power Stone at some. We met up with some people from my brother's Discord and played some games in their hotel. Overall, it was a fun time. Played a lot of games, got some good grub. Got to hang out with old friends, got to meet some new ones. And I'm probably going to do it again next year. I don't really know. Let's see. Stream of consciousness. I haven't really seen too many new movies lately. I've seen some anime that's good. The Witch and the Beast. That is the anime of the year for me. I haven't really seen any other ones that I even would make contenders. There's this weird little supernatural mystery one about this girl that works at a bookshop and gets cursed. And she can, after she's cursed, she gains the ability to change from an adult to a teenager to a kid so that she can change to solve mysteries. And it seems okay. It's been kind of cool so far. It's not anything super special. Like, I wouldn't be like, oh my god, you've got to see this, but it's one of the better things I saw this year. The Witch and the Beast, though, great characters. I love the setup of the world they're in. I read a little bit ahead in the comics to see where they were going because the season ended, and it looks like they're going to good places. It almost feels like, kind of like how in One Piece they go to all these different weird islands and everything. Well, you know, in the first season they're hunting down all these witches and going to different places to try and find them. And there's even like a near world-ending catastrophe that happens in, I think, the third story, which doesn't usually happen so early in these things. Like, it wasn't even a season ender. The season ender was not quite as big a deal as the mid-season story. But then apparently next season, if they actually make it within the next 10 years, I know that's a thing that happens in anime now. Great show never gets a new season until you've forgotten about it and are watching something else. But they're supposed to go to an underground city that's several layers deep and tangle with some vampires for a bit while hunting another witch. The premise of the story is pretty great, but I won't spoil it because they tell you basically the premise in the first episode, and I didn't look to see if that's how they start the comic, because I could totally see them moving that to the beginning just to get people into it for what happened. But it's really cool. If you're not like, ooh, I want to see more after the first episode, it might not be for you, but the first episode does a pretty good job. And as far as disappointments go, I think Kaiju number 8, probably the biggest disappointment of the season. Well, okay, that's not entirely fair. I haven't watched that much. I watch like maybe 3 to 5 shows each season, if that. And like, I think I skipped a whole year a couple years ago. The only thing I really got into last year was Mashal, which I'm hoping the 3rd season comes out soon, because that's a good show. If you don't know what Mashal is, that is Harry Potter, but Harry can't do magic and is a musclehead. So, if that sounds interesting, go for it. Yeah, Kaiju number 8 was a big disappointment. Like, I liked the premise, and I liked some of the scenes. They did a good job of the scenes where, you know, there's a bad guy and someone has to do something about it, and so here comes the hero to do it. But the amount of goofiness completely detracts from any investment in the characters. Like, there's some good scenes. There's a scene where one character is, you know, she's been a perfectionist her whole life, and her father was really, you know, hard on her to do the best she can and be the best. And she fails at one point, because of something that's way beyond her control and way more than she can handle. And the hero shows up and this is one thing I really like, because a lot of times you'll have these shows where a hero has a secret, and that secret stays their secret for like 5 seasons before anyone but like maybe one other person learns about it. And it kind of gets stale to watch that over and over again. You know, unless that's the premise of the show. Like, it's really hard to have a show where only one person ever gets to learn someone's secret and not have it seem a little repetitive. I mean, even the Shadow had agents that maybe they didn't know who he was, but they knew he was there and that they worked for him. But this particular show, you know, right away, one person knows that this guy is now part kaiju because he was there when it happened. And then when the second character learns about it, it's during this horrendous moment where everyone's in danger, and she particularly is probably going to be killed. And she's kind of been mocking him the whole time because he's the weakest member of the team as far as anyone knows, because nobody knows that he has all this kaiju power hidden away. And he can't reveal that because he's worried they'll kill him because they're kaiju hunters. But he shows up at the last second after a flashback that this girl has about her father not really giving her any praise and just saying, you should always expect to be better. You shouldn't expect to be rewarded for it. The hero shows up and tells her that it's okay, she's done enough, and she's done a great job, and she's done a better job than anyone could ever ask for. And then he says, and I'll take it from here, you can count on me. Those are good scenes. But it's immediately ruined. Like they didn't even wait for it. This is the problem. This is where bad comedic timing comes in. You're supposed to wait until he saves the day, does all that, and, you know, wait a bit until afterwards, and then have him do the goofy thing where he like gets down on his knees and begs her not to tell anyone, which, you know, she should be thanking her lucky stars at this point. And actually at this point you've got two witnesses that can prove you're one of the good guys. You should be revealing this to everyone, but whatever. It wouldn't make a good show if that happened either, I guess. Yeah, he does a lot of comedy, face faults, and everything in completely serious moments, which can be done properly, but they happen all the time in this show, and every single time you get a really good moment, it seems like they spoil it like that. Like, it's almost as bad as some of the later, oh geez, what was that, Phase 3 Marvel movies? Like after Age of Ultron, where everything had to be a joke. It was almost as bad, but not quite, as Thor: Love and Thunder. There was not a serious moment in that movie, no matter how hard they tried. Even the parts with the bad guy would be ruined by some stupid thing a kid said. Oh man, it's just funny to think of that. What happened to people's ability to write? You know, I watched that Shadow movie, and it is a movie that's full of comedians and top actors, and they had a lot of jokes in that movie, but they knew when and where to place them. There was like one joke in that entire movie that people genuinely consider bad, and I don't even think it was that bad of a joke. The Shadow rolls over, pulls one of his opponents over the edge of a parapet, and they land on a gargoyle on the side of a building. The Shadow lands on top of the bad guy and kills him, and he looks at him and says, next time you get to be on top. Now, I don't see where that detracted from anything. It might have felt maybe a little bit out of character or something, or maybe it was just a bit too cheesy of a line. But there were other cheesy lines in the movie, and they worked great. That might have been the most out of place one. But the thing is, it can be done. You can do comedy and serious and make it work. Kaiju number 8 is just all over the place with that. It's if you sit back and think about it enough, it almost feels like it was written by AI, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't. It's got that feel to it where it feels like a machine grabbing at everything at every moment to figure out what will work. Needless to say, I'm probably going to watch a few more episodes and then give up on it. Even though, I mean, it looks like it if you could pull all of that out of it, it looks like it would be a good show. Hello, Kept Silent. Yeah, it's okay. I'm stream of consciousness blabbing because I didn't feel like playing anything. But I also felt like I should probably do something. So yeah, you missed a lot of blabber. I'm being a blatherskite. Why do so many of those words start with B? You missed me talking about the Shadow movie. I'm sure you've heard me do that before, so you probably heard a lot of what I had to say about that. Yeah, I'm onto anime now, but I don't really know what else to talk about. I covered a lot of what I wanted to cover. And I'm like looking, you know, I can do Duck Detective, I think. I want to finish that, but I don't know if I can finish it tonight. I was hoping to finish it all in one go. Let me see if I can roll that up here. Maybe I can get that going. Where'd you go, Steam? Alright, let's stop the old music. It's really weird, like, I can see the level that I'm recording that music at, and I can hear through my headset what it sounds like, but I don't actually know how much it's covering up my voice or how low it is until I watch the recording. It's like this decibel indicator doesn't help me at all. Alright. Steamy Steam Steam. Apparently I was looking at a game called Remy Lore. I'm going to get this game. Put that on the wish list. Back to the library. And we are looking for Duck Detective. Oh, wait. Duck Detective was... That was Good Old Games. I do not want Steam. Alright. Yep, there we go. There's our Duck Detective. I guess I should open up Twitch and change my settings. See if I can do this. I really need to learn how to do this on the fly. I'm sure other people have worked out the bugs for this. I'm going to mute... Now, you know what? I'm just going to try and do this while being really, really quiet. So let's see. System sound. I'm going to mute that for a second. Okay. And let's get rolling. Make sure this is all up to snuff. Volume is a bit low there. Bring that up a touch. Maybe that's just my headset. Okay, it looks good. A little bit more. Alright.